over 30 of these executive orders were not only creating states of emergency to implement tariffs against China, Canada, Mexico, and then, of course, reciprocal tariffs against the rest of the world. But also continually changing them as his negotiation with China went on. He had to issue another executive order and another executive order as he had various phone calls with President Xi, and his relationship either improved or worsened.
Now, we're nearly a year into his second term. President Trump has been busy. Very busy. He's been firing out executive orders left, right and centre, Sharpie in hand, signing 225 of them in just 12 months. And that's meant everything from eye-watering tariffs and changes to citizenship law to stronger shower heads in American homes. To help us make sense of what Trump's actually managed to do this year, I'm joined by David Charter, US Assistant Editor at The Times. Hello, David. Before we go any further, I was just seeing this earlier. Trump became obsessed with shower heads when he was campaigning, and he said, I have a luxurious head of hair and I'd be in a random hotel in Michigan and the water wasn't strong enough. And so what's he want to do?
Yes, Don, this fell into the category of Trump's hobby horse executive orders. Along with getting rid of paper straws, which was another one that bothered him after his straw went limp in his Diet Coke one.
Sorry to hear that.
And this one, well, he talked about it quite a lot at Trump rallies. As you say, he always talked about how he would turn on the faucet when he was visiting the tap when he was visiting the shower. Yeah. And it would just be drip, 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 and he'd call the maintenance person. And he'd be told that no, it's the law because of your predecessor Joe Biden, sir, that you get high water pressure coming out of the shower. Well, it turned out that Biden did sign an order to limit the total water pressure in an American shower to 2.5 gallons per minute. But this applied to the whole shower, so that if there was, say, 2 shower heads, as is often the case in American showers, then the total would be 2.5 gallons per minute. And Trump's order, brace yourself, reversed the situation so that,
thank God,
if you had a multi-nozzle shower, that every single spray would be at 2.5 gallons per minute. He couldn't go any higher because he's issuing these decrees by executive order, as I've said, which is a presidential way of interpreting the law. Or at least that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an interpretation or a directive on how to use the law. And he can't actually change something that's been passed in Congress. So Congress, back in the 90s, had mandated 2.5 gallons a minute. So all that Trump could do was restore the previous situation. And I spoke to, as you would expect from the Times, we spoke to a representative of the shower industry.
Of course.
Yes, and he informed us that the executive order had made absolutely no difference to any showers in America, because most of the modern shower fittings are designed in such a way to produce quite a strong flow of water, using 2.5 gallons or less, taking into account the position that was put in place by Biden. So it was, to say, a hobby horse direct executive order.
I think it's great. I think it's great we've got the big story out of the way first, which is good. Looking at executive orders, how significant is the number of orders he signed? I mean, how does he compare to previous presidents? I know FDR signed a crazy amount when the US entered World War II, but apart from that, where does he stand?
So Trump signed the most executive orders, which is basically, as I say, a presidential decree by pen, just issue it from the Oval Office, of any president since Roosevelt, that's FDR, during the Second World War, in 1942, which was basically the year that America entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 41. Franklin Roosevelt issued slightly more executive orders than Donald Trump in those extraordinary circumstances of America going to a full-on world war. That's the last time that more orders were issued from the Oval Office. And as I say, Trump's 225 is almost as many as Obama managed in his entire presidency,
Right.
and more than the 162 that Biden signed during his 4 years.
Tariffs took a lot of the limelight, but what did he manage to slip through unnoticed?
Well, I say just on the tariffs, Don, the over 30 of these executive orders were not only creating states of emergency to implement tariffs against China, Canada, Mexico, and then, of course, reciprocal tariffs against the rest of the world. But also continually changing them as his negotiation with China went on. He had to issue another executive order and another executive order as he had various phone calls with President Xi, and his relationship either improved or worsened along the way. As I say, there were several hobby horse ones that we categorized like that. One of them was to mandate that the federal government and any company or agency contracting with the federal government no longer use paper straws because they don't work very well, according to Trump, even though they're not always exactly made of paper. The non-plastic straws these days can be biodegradable, made of various materials. But nevertheless, Trump mandated plastic straws should be back for the federal government.
Did that work? Did he get rid of them?
We also spoke to an expert on straws and discovered that because the general drift in manufacturing is towards more reusable or biodegradable materials, in fact, all of the main suppliers of straws had invested in quite expensive machinery to make quite sophisticated biodegradable straws in the future. So that order is also not having a great deal of effect out there in the market at the moment.
So did Trump achieve all he promised he would in this year? He claims, for instance, to have solved a whopping 8 wars, which is very impressive. Which wars does he claim to have ended, and did he actually do that?
Right, so we can rattle through them very quickly. Armenia and Azerbaijan, they did sign a truce, and they in fact opened a road called the Trump Highway to link part of Armenia that had ended up as an enclave in Azerbaijan, and that seems to be holding, which is a very deep and long-running conflict. So that was actually a tick in Trump's column.
That's one to the Trump.
Yeah, so Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, they came to Washington to sign their deal and shake hands and were very friendly after having a conflict lasting several years, a very bloody conflict. However, some of the rebel groups that are causing a lot of trouble in the border area, with suspicions that one or both of the countries are secretly actually encouraging those groups, they're still at it. And so they haven't quite sorted complete peace for the people living there, even though the leaders of the countries have vowed to make sure it happens. So again, I think that is a tick for Trump. I think he did a good job there getting those two countries together.
That's two.
Israel and Iran. Well, Trump did end the war, what was it, 11-day war between Israel and Iran when he sent American bombers to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran. So that's another tick for Trump.
That's 3. He's doing well.
Yeah, India and Pakistan. Well, there were skirmishes and, in fact, dogfights between India and Pakistan planes after some border dispute re-erupted, of course, in the Kashmir area. There's an uneasy piece there. It did break out again, and Trump got on the phone again. I think this one is a watch and see, because India says that Trump had nothing to do with making peace, whilst Pakistan has nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. So
right.
that one's a sort of
We're running out of time here. He's solved so many wars that it's quite incredible. Overall, do you think he deserves the name President of Peace, just very briefly?
I would say that the man who also renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War, the jury is very much out. And there are those who say, if you give him the prize in 2026, will he take his foot off the gas and all this focus that he's put on trying to make peace, which he has done in several areas, will he simply forget about it? So I would say wait until 2028, Dom.
OK, well, thank you very much. I wanted to talk about Zoran Mamdani's inauguration as the new mayor of New York tomorrow, but we can't. We've run out of time. David Charter, the Times US assistant editor there. Thank you.